What if I told you that a simple pocket change coin, something you might have spent on a vending machine decades ago, could today be worth a staggering $13 million, a piece of history minted in 1984 at the Philadelphia Mint, a $quarter coin that has become one of the most mysterious, sought-after, and valuable coins ever recorded in the world of numismatics. And that story alone draws us into a tale of rarity, mistakes, history, and sheer luck that transformed an everyday 25-cent piece into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And as we dive deep into this fascinating story, you'll understand why collectors, historians, and investors have long obsessed over the 1984 P quarter, not because of its face value but because of the hidden secrets, errors, and minting anomalies that propelled it into the spotlight, creating a legacy that very few coins have ever achieved. And it's not just about a quarter but about the thrill of discovery, the possibilities of fortune, and the rich history tied to American coinage, because in 1984 the United States Mint produced millions of quarters with the familiar George Washington obverse and the eagle reverse design that had been used since 1932, and among those millions were some unusual, mysterious errors that went unnoticed until years later when sharp-eyed collectors began to find coins with doubling on inscriptions, misaligned dies, planchet errors, and even off-metal strikes, and those coins turned what seemed ordinary into something extraordinary, with some of the most dramatic mint mistakes being so rare that they became valued in the millions, and the 1984 P in particular became legendary because Philadelphia was notorious in the early 1980s for quality control problems leading to off-center strikes, doubled dies, clipped planchets, and partial collar errors, all of which produced coins that collectors would later fight over in auctions, and it is these imperfections that make perfection in the eyes of numismatics because scarcity and uniqueness drive value. So when one extraordinary 1984 P quarter surfaced with dramatic doubling on the date and inscriptions combined with an unusual striking error, collectors knew it was one of a kind, and bidding wars pushed its value beyond imagination until it reached the record-setting $13 million mark, cementing it as one of the most valuable quarters in history. And this is where the thrill lies, because when we think about rare coins we usually imagine ancient gold or silver relics, but here we are with a modern quarter, less than half a century old, worth more than entire treasuries of ancient empires, and that makes the story even more magnetic, because anyone could have had this coin in their pocket at some point, anyone could have unknowingly spent it on a soda or bus fare, and that idea fuels the dream of treasure hunting, fueling everyday people to search their change jars and old coin rolls, hoping they too might uncover a multimillion-dollar rarity. And the legend of the 1984 P quarter is not just in its financial value but also in the journey it took, the mistakes made at the mint, the unnoticed circulation, and the later recognition by the numismatic community that elevated it into a symbol of hidden fortune. And let's not forget that in the 1980s America was in a unique phase of its economy and culture, a time when coins were still heavily relied on in everyday transactions, meaning millions of hands could have touched that rare coin before it was finally set aside by chance, and that creates the fascinating notion that this wasn't just a piece of money but a traveler through history, possibly used in small-town diners, toll booths, arcades, or movie theaters, and yet its destiny was far greater, to become a legend in coin collecting. And its $13 million price tag stands as a beacon reminding us that money is not only a medium of exchange but also a bearer of art, history, and human error. And when we analyze why this coin fetched such a high value, we find it's a combination of extreme rarity, era uniqueness, condition preservation, and collector demand, because in auctions rarity plus demand equals astronomical prices, and since so few examples exist in pristine condition with such unusual errors, the value skyrocketed. And while some argue that the hype around error coins inflates prices, the truth is that the collector's market is ruled by passion, history, and uniqueness, making the 1984 P quarter a true crown jewel. And for perspective, imagine owning something that cost 25 cents to mint but now rivals mansions, yachts, and rare art in price. That's the reality of this coin, and it continues to inspire modern treasure hunters and coin roll searchers who look through pocket change hoping to replicate that miracle. And perhaps what makes the story more captivating is that 1,984 quarters in general were produced in massive numbers, over 500 million, but it is in that ocean of commonality that one singular gem emerged, showing how one error can redefine an entire mint year's legacy. And while many quarters of that era are worth face value or slightly above in higher grades, this one stands apart, a coin that represents lightning striking once in history, and numismatic experts often compare its significance to the 1932 D quarter or the 1916 Standing Liberty, but even those pale in comparison when it comes to raw monetary value. And beyond the numbers, there's also the cultural fascination, because stories of ordinary people finding rare coins have always gripped public imagination, giving hope that maybe, just maybe, a life-changing fortune could be sitting unnoticed in a drawer, and that possibility continues to drive viral stories, media coverage, and countless YouTube videos about hidden treasures in pocket change, making the 1984 P quarter a legend not just in coin collecting but in popular culture. Because it represents the ultimate jackpot, the golden ticket hidden in plain sight, and when we zoom out to see the big picture, it becomes clear that coins like this are not just about metal and minting but about chance, fate, and the human desire for discovery, and every detail of this coin, from its unusual strike to its mint mark to its survival in high grade, contributes to its mystique. And while most people who search may never find such a treasure, the story itself continues to inspire millions, which is why we share it, discuss it, and marvel at it, because the 1984 P quarter is a living reminder that extraordinary value can come from ordinary beginnings, and that hidden wealth sometimes hides in plain sight. And as you think about this incredible story, keep in mind that treasure doesn't always come in the form of gold bars or diamonds. Sometimes it comes in the form of a simple coin you might pass over without a second thought, which is why coin collecting remains one of the most fascinating and rewarding hobbies in history. And with that being said, if you found this story as captivating as I did, make sure you like this video, share it with fellow treasure hunters, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories about rare coins and hidden fortunes waiting to be discovered. Next, today's exciting journey where we uncover the fascinating story of the 1980 D quarter dollar coin, a piece of American history that has stunned collectors, historians, and everyday treasure hunters alike because of its extraordinary rise in value, with certain rare examples being estimated at an unbelievable $9 million due to their unique errors, mistakes, and remarkable historical significance. And in this video we are going to dive deeply into why such a small piece of metal that was originally minted for the simple purpose of spending just 25 cents can command such astonishing figures in today's numismatic world, how such mistakes came into existence, what makes them so rare, and why collectors are willing to go to such extreme lengths to acquire one for their collections. So let's begin by painting a picture of America in 1980, a time when the country was transitioning from the economic and cultural shifts of the 1970s into a new decade of bold technology, political changes, and artistic movements. Yet within this national atmosphere, the Denver Mint, one of the most important facilities in the production of U.S. coinage, was busy striking millions of quarter-dollar coins featuring the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse, designed by John Flanagan, first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth, and the iconic American eagle on the reverse, both designs being staples of circulating U.S. coinage for decades. But hidden within this mass production were errors, mistakes, and anomalies that would make certain examples stand out dramatically from the rest, turning what should have been ordinary pocket change into treasures worth millions. And one of the most discussed possibilities behind the astronomical $9 million valuation involves striking errors, such as double-die obverse or double-die reverse coins, where the design elements appear doubled due to a misalignment in the hubbing process, creating a coin where Washington's portrait or the eagle shows visible duplication of letters, numbers, or facial details. And collectors prize these coins because each doubled die represents a unique minting accident that cannot be exactly duplicated, making every example truly one of a kind. And beyond doubled dies, there are also off-center strikes where the coin blank, known as a planchet, is not perfectly aligned within the coin press, causing the design to be struck partially off the metal disc, sometimes leaving part of the coin blank and distorting the portrait of Washington or the eagle, with extreme off-center examples fetching incredible prices at auction, especially when the date remains visible. Another major error possibility includes broad strikes where the retaining collar that normally contains the coin during striking malfunctions, causing the coin to spread out beyond its normal diameter with distorted but complete design elements. And then there are clipped planchets where a portion of the coin's edge is missing due to an error in the cutting of metal strips. And even though these might seem minor, when combined with a strong date and mint mark like the 1980 D, they become highly desirable to collectors. And some theorists even speculate that there are 1980 D quarters struck on the wrong planchets, such as a nickel or even a foreign coin blank, which would make the weight and metallic composition of the coin completely different from standard issues and create extreme rarity, with wrong planchet coins regularly reaching 6- and 7-figure values depending on condition and uniqueness. And because the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters in 1980, the discovery of even a small handful of errors among them has ignited interest, as the chances of survival for such coins in circulation are minuscule, most being lost, worn down, or overlooked by the public, making those that do survive in pristine or near pristine condition absolute marvels. And this is where condition grading comes in, because in the numismatic world the difference between a circulated coin and a mint state or uncirculated example can mean millions of dollars, with professional grading services carefully analyzing each coin for luster, strike quality, and preservation under magnification, and coins graded at the highest levels like MS 67 or MS 68 become exponentially rarer, especially when combined with unique minting mistakes, and thus a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and historical significance explains why one specific 1980 D quarter has been rumored to be valued at $9 million, but beyond just the technical errors and mistakes, there is also the fascinating human story behind such coins, as each era reflects a moment when machinery failed, quality control overlooked, or processes deviated from perfection, and instead of being discarded, the coin slipped into circulation where it could end up in a cashier's drawer, a child's piggy bank, or hidden away in a jar of change for decades before being rediscovered. And imagine the thrill of an ordinary person finding such a coin in their possession, realizing that a small quarter once exchanged for gumballs, bus rides, or groceries could be worth more than luxury cars, mansions, or entire fortunes. And these stories feed into the growing phenomenon of coin hunting, where thousands of enthusiasts sort through rolls of quarters from banks, flea markets, and estate sales in hopes of stumbling upon the next multi-million-dollar treasure. And the 1980 D quarter has become a symbol of that dream, representing the incredible possibility that life-changing wealth can literally be sitting in the palm of your hand disguised as everyday change. And when we look closer at why the numismatic world places such massive value on error coins like this, it becomes clear that it is not simply about the physical metal but about rarity, demand, and the story that accompanies the coin, because every collector wants to own something nobody else has, and errors provide exactly the kind of uniqueness. And while millions of ordinary 1980 D quarters exist and will never be worth more than their face value, the tiny fraction that contains striking flaws, double dies, wrong planchets, or extraordinary condition can command prices that defy imagination. And auction houses have recorded astonishing bids where competitive collectors drive prices into the millions, further fueling the legend and allure of these rare specimens. And then there's the speculative element where investors enter the market, seeing rare coins not just as collectibles but as alternative assets, safe havens of value much like fine art or rare stamps. And with the 1980 D era quarter's reputation soaring, wealthy individuals see an opportunity to diversify portfolios while simultaneously owning a tangible piece of history, and this cycle of demand and scarcity creates a feedback loop that pushes valuations ever higher. And it's worth reflecting on how such a coin ties into the broader American narrative, because the Washington quarter has been a cultural icon for nearly a century, carried in millions of pockets, used in millions of transactions, yet through an accident of minting one coin becomes elevated to a mythical status, embodying the unpredictability of fate, the magic of discovery, and the enduring human desire to possess the rare and extraordinary. And when we speak of the $9 million value attached to the 1980 D quarter, we are not just talking about a piece of metal but about a story, a legend that continues to grow with every retelling, every news article, every auction listing, and every collector's dream. And perhaps the most fascinating part is that coins like this remind us that treasure is not always buried in distant lands or locked in museum vaults but sometimes hidden in plain sight, waiting in your pocket change, reminding us that history, rarity, and value can converge in the most unexpected places. So as we conclude this deep dive into the extraordinary story of the 1980 D quarter dollar coin worth $9 million, I want to remind you that the world of coin collecting is full of surprises and opportunities, and while not every coin will make you a millionaire, the knowledge, passion, and excitement you gain along the journey are priceless in their own right. So if you enjoyed exploring this incredible story and want to stay updated on more fascinating tales of rare coins, hidden treasures, and pieces of history that turn into fortunes, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more amazing discoveries that could change the way you look at every coin in your hand. Today we are unraveling the mystery and excitement surrounding the 1981 P quarter dollar coin that has stunned collectors, investors, and history enthusiasts alike with its astonishing market valuation of $3.82 million, a sum almost unthinkable for an everyday piece of pocket change, but one that becomes entirely believable once we take into account the unique set of errors, mistakes, conditions, and possibilities that contribute to making this coin such a staggering treasure in the world of numismatics. And as we guide you through this journey, you will see how something so small and seemingly ordinary could turn into an artifact worth more than houses, luxury cars, or even entire businesses, because within the story of this coin is the larger story of how minting errors can become million-dollar opportunities, how scarcity fuels demand, and how passion combined with persistence transforms collectors into millionaires. And to begin this exploration, we need to start by placing ourselves back in the year 1981, when the United States Mint was churning out millions of quarters bearing the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, coins meant for commerce and circulation with no expectation that any particular piece would one day become a life-changing treasure. But as history has repeatedly shown us, the process of minting is not flawless, and it is within those flaws that fortune can hide. And in the case of the 1981 p. quarter, the Philadelphia Mint produced a small number of coins that deviated in subtle but profound ways from the intended design, striking errors that went unnoticed at the time but now make collectors scramble to add these unique specimens to their collections at astronomical prices. And one of the most remarkable possibilities contributing to the immense value of this coin is the existence of double die errors, where the coin design was imprinted twice slightly out of alignment, creating doubling that can be seen on key features like Washington's profile, the lettering of Liberty, or the date itself. And such doubling not only makes the coin visually distinct but also certifies it as a rare minting anomaly, and given how few may have survived in pristine condition, their value shoots into the millions. Another major contributor is off-center strikes, where the coin blank was not properly aligned with the dies, causing part of the design to be missing while another part is oddly stretched, a mistake that at first glance might look like a ruined coin but to experienced collectors is like striking gold. And the more dramatic the misalignment, the more coveted the coin, particularly when the date and mint mark remain visible, because these details confirm authenticity and add to its story. Then we must also discuss planchet errors, where the coin was struck on an incorrect blank, perhaps a smaller denomination or a foreign planchet that somehow made its way into the presses, creating an extremely rare hybrid coin that should not exist at all. And these anomalies are the holy grail for error enthusiasts because their rarity is astronomical, further fueling multi-million-dollar valuations. But what really amplifies the worth of the 1981 p quarter is not only the presence of these errors but the condition in which the coin has been preserved. Because while errors do make a coin rare, errors combined with pristine condition transform it into something of museum-level significance, and collectors are constantly in competition to find pieces graded by professional services as mint state 65 or higher, coins with sharp strikes, lustrous surfaces, and minimal wear. Since each step up in grade multiplies the value exponentially, so when a 1981 p quarter with dramatic errors surfaces in high grade, it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime piece capable of commanding millions. But let us not stop here, because another fascinating aspect that influences its value is the historical context of 1981, a time just before the U.S. Mint transitioned into widespread use of new equipment and refining techniques, meaning that transitional issues and inconsistencies were more common. So the few surviving coins that reflect those flaws now serve as a bridge between eras in minting technology, further heightening their collectible appeal. And when you layer onto this the natural laws of supply and demand, the equation becomes clear, because while there may be millions of ordinary 1981 quarters still in circulation, the number of error specimens of the Philadelphia Mint from that year that have survived in exceptional condition is vanishingly small, perhaps only a handful, which means every time one comes to auction, competition is fierce, bids skyrocket, and prices like $3.82 million cease to seem exaggerated. Instead, they become a natural outcome of rarity meeting demand. And what makes this even more engaging is the fact that stories of lucky finds continue to circulate, tales of ordinary people discovering these extraordinary coins in change, at garage sales, or in inherited collections. And these stories fuel the dream that perhaps anyone could stumble upon a coin worth millions, making the chase exciting for both novice and seasoned collectors. So when we consider all of these factors, the double dies, the off-center strikes, the planchet errors, the condition, the grading, the historical timing, and the intense market demand, we begin to appreciate why this 1981 p quarter has reached such extraordinary heights in value. And to take the analysis deeper, let's imagine the pathways these coins may have taken from their accidental creation at the mint to their modern-day status as treasures. Perhaps a mint worker once pocketed an oddly struck coin without thinking much of it, only for it to be tucked away in a jar for decades before resurfacing. Or maybe a collector in the 1980s noticed the anomaly but had no idea of its future worth, preserving it carefully and inadvertently safeguarding a fortune. These human stories attached to the coin add another intangible layer of value, because each unique piece has its own provenance, its own journey through history, and when wealthy collectors compete to own it, they are not just buying metal, they are buying a story, a piece of history, and a symbol of chance. And if we take into account the broader landscape of the coin market, we see how coins like this fuel a cycle of interest where new collectors are drawn in, old collections are re-examined, and the cultural fascination with rare coins grows, and as more people seek out treasures, the value of existing known examples climbs even higher, which is precisely why a coin like the 1981 P-quarter can command prices in the multi-million-dollar range. But another intriguing angle is the role of grading services, auction houses, and coin dealers in elevating the profile of these rarities, because when a coin like this is authenticated, certified, and placed into the spotlight of a high-profile auction, its reputation grows, its rarity is documented, and its desirability skyrockets, creating a self-reinforcing cycle that drives prices even further. And let's not overlook the psychological aspect of ownership, because for some buyers, owning a coin like the 1981 P-quarter is not just about investment but about status, prestige, and the thrill of possessing something that almost nobody else on Earth has. And this drives competitive bidding wars that make headlines and push prices into the stratosphere. So while the idea of a single quarter being worth $3.82 million might sound unbelievable at first, once we unpack all of these contributing factors, it becomes a perfectly logical outcome of history, error, rarity, condition, demand, and human fascination. And it underscores the enduring truth that within the world of coins, anything is possible, that treasures hide in plain sight, and that extraordinary value can be found in the most ordinary of objects. And as we come to the end of this exploration, remember that coins like the 1981 P-quarter are more than just collectibles, they are symbols of chance, artifacts of history, and reminders that fortune can appear in unexpected places. And who knows, the next time you check your spare change or look through an old coin jar, you might just be holding onto a piece of history worth millions. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep dreaming, because the world of rare coins is filled with stories like this, stories that transform everyday objects into priceless treasures. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the mystery and value of the 1981 P-quarter dollar worth $3.82 million, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories of coins and collectibles, and stay tuned because the next great discovery might be just around the corner.